Hello and welcome to Adventures in Venueland, an EVMC podcast. Join us for this all-access pass backstage and behind the scenes with some of the brightest minds that cross the scope of the live event industry. I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. We'll introduce you to incredible guests who journey with us as we dive deep into the world of venues, tours, festivals, and everything in between. Grab your laminate and meet us in Venueland.
Today's adventure takes us to Portland, Oregon. We're going to check in with Kevin Merlet and his adventures all over the country and in his current position as the director of arena marketing there at the Rose Quarter, which, the Motor Center, so much more. We're going to find out all the details. Kevin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So first of all, let's talk about this because, there's the term the Rose Quarter, which people may not be familiar with. Then there's the Motor Center, which, a lot of people in our industry know. But let's talk to that person who doesn't know what either one is. What are you guys doing there?
So the Rose Quarter is what we call our commons. It's the land in which hosts all of our venues. We have the Veterans Memorial Coliseum there, which is built in 1960. Elvis performed there, Beatles performed there. It's been around. It's been around for a while. And our tenant there is the Winterhawks, which is our junior hockey team. It's owned by the city, operated by us. That's one building. Second, just across the commons, we have the Motor Center, which is where the Blazers currently play. It's our arena. Like you said, it's people in the industry think of arenas, think of the space. They're going to think of the Motor Center. And then within the Motor Center, we have our Alaska Airlines Theater of the Clouds, which is a stage configuration that sort of takes a stage and places it facing east and has a curtaining system there that allows us to curtain from 35 to 6,500.
I'm so glad you brought that up because you guys are like the only ones in the country who have that, right?
From my knowledge, yes, that's correct.
So tell me again how this works, like with the curtains, and I'm just trying to even envision the theater configuration. It's more than just pulling back a curtain or two, right?
Yes. It's you think of a north end stage and you have a stage sort of facing in the end of the oval, looking out to the bowl, the crowd. This sort of takes the stage, places it in the center of the arena facing east, I believe. And the curtaining system sort of makes it a wedge, so it can curtain 3,500 people to 6,800 people, and it creates more of a theater aesthetic because the seats are a little more inclined there when you're looking down at the stage, and so that allows us to bring in a lot of different type of acts.
Do you typically see musical acts that are taking advantage of that, or is it some larger Broadway tours? Is it a little mix of everything, family shows, all the above, or is it tend to be kind of one type of show?
It's still music focused, but it allows us, we've had comedy acts that probably we would not have booked if we didn't have that stage configuration. So we just had, we had Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, and they're actually coming back for a reason, but we had them, we did TEDx Portland years ago. That would have never really been in the arena had we not had that stage configuration. Sting, when I started here, Sting did a theater-only tour, and he performed there.
And you would have missed out on that tour if you didn't have the theater configuration. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and same with we had Olivia Rodrigo. After COVID, she had her Sour tour, and she played sort of smaller venues and such. And we were very fortunate to have her in the theater setup because we have that availability. So it's pretty cool.
Do you ever have that situation where you kind of go on sale and it's a theater setup and then, you're like, oh, wow, we should have made this a full arena play. And then do you ever switch it over?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's happened a couple of times. My favorite memory is Billie Eilish. So Billie Eilish, when she announced we had her at Theater of the Clouds. She announced end of February, her album wasn't dropping until March. And when we went up, radio wasn't really interested in promo, because no one played her. And she started at 3,400, blew that out, went up to 6,800, blew that out. And then they're like, well, let's make it a lower bowl show. So they did that. She blew it out. And then her show was May 2nd with us. So they were hesitant on opening the 300. They ended up eventually opening the 300, and she sold that out. And it literally went from a show that was staged for, say, 4,000, and within, say, 6 to 8 weeks, went up to 13,000 people.
That's awesome.
And I'd never seen anything like that. And it was so remarkable. It was such a, like, you're like, this is something. There's a buzz. Like, this is wild. You know, it went from radio being like, we're not too interested in promo to like, please,
like,
can we get tickets? Please,
screw you guys.
Like, so it was pretty. It's really those are the moments that I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that we have the capability to do that. So
For sure.
I'm not to just keep talking about this, but it's such a cool option that you have, and it's so unique to what you guys are doing there in Portland. But how do you market that, to the public? I've heard you say the theater in the clouds, but like, so when you're just talking to the general public, so they know where they're going.
Yeah, it's so that the stage configuration was sort of put together before I came on board. The reasoning for having it have, Alaska Airlines Theater of the Clouds is because, there's certain acts that come through and their audience may not, when they think Modus, oh, that's 15,000 people. That's so big. I don't really want to see my artist or my favorite artist or speaker series or whatever it is. I don't want to see a comedian with 15,000 people. So I think it's important to have a different name to it to let people know that it's not Modus. It's not the traditional arena show you're going to see. It's a theater setup. So having theater in the name informs fans that this is going to be more of a traditional theater setup. This is going to be a more intimate show than what you think a normal Modus Center would be. So that's the reasoning behind sort of that. And also from a B2B standpoint, educating promoters or, from our booker, like informing agents what it is. It does a better job by then just saying Modus Center, but it's different, So by calling it something else, it just educates people a little better. But it's still, there's definitely still hiccups with all that.
Yeah. Always, in everything we do, we know that.
There's never no hiccups. Do you have any challenges on like the booking side where you've got essentially two venues using the same space? You obviously use the theater, it kind of kills the arena for a day, or is it just kind of helping to fill in dates and doesn't really present anything?
Obviously our booker would know that, but from my experiences, it helps us fill dates. It allows us to be more diverse, allows us to bring more diverse artists through, it allows us to provide sort of a growth venue for a lot of artists. So, you have, the theaters downtown, the Schnitz and the Keller are about 2,700 people to 29. And then you have the Roseland, which is a couple thousand. So like, if you have an artist that's sort of is sitting there like, they can sell more than 2,700, but maybe Portland doesn't have that space for them. It allows an option that maybe an artist can grow into Modus Center, which has happened often. We have Tyler, the Creator. We have a lot of artists that go from playing the clubs, go to Theater of the Clouds or the VMC next door, which is about 8,500 North End configuration. And then they can grow into Modus Center. It helps us fill in dates ultimately. So
we talked about the Rose Quarter, and then of course the two venues there, and kind of the third venue with the theater configuration. But then it's 30 acres. So are you also doing events at the plaza outside? Is there dining there? What else is there anything else in the Rose Quarter we didn't touch on?
Yeah, our offices are located here. We have Dr. Jack's, which is our on Commons restaurant. It's not really open to the public. It's really just for event nights. And then the Commons itself, we do have events. We have cultural events like El Grito, which is a Hispanic heritage celebration. We have a lot of sort of like Portland races will start here. It's not big enough the way it's laid out. It doesn't lend itself to really having large, say, concerts here.
Sure.
I think something we're exploring, and we currently have a committee trying to like iron out opportunities here. But a lot of walks start here. A lot of community events will start here, races and stuff like that. So that's really, really cool. And then we have just the Dr. Jack's. A big thing is because there's not a lot of stuff around here to walk to, so it doesn't get that general
foot traffic.
That's it, correct?
Yeah, sure, that makes sense. Now, is it still jointly owned with by Vulcan Sports and Entertainment?
Yeah, so Vulcan, so like I said, the city owns VMC, operates that. We operate it. And then Moda Center is owned by Vulcan, and it's Vulcan is obviously it owns the Trailblazers and Seattle Seahawks and Lumen Field, WAMU Theater, stuff like that. So we're all under that umbrella, and my office space is in the same building as the Blazers, and we work very closely on projects and cross promote. So all one big happy family.
What's the market like of, Portland, for people that haven't been, are you the only arena in the market? Is there much competition in Oregon outside of the Portland area? Or are you mostly, competing and routing with like Seattle and California to the south?
There's no as far as arenas, there's really no other competition. Matthew Knight Arena down in Eugene's pretty
There
much.
is no competition.
There's no competition. There's no competition for the arena side. There's no competition on the arena side. I will say there's a lot of amphitheaters outdoors, and when Portland's weather does get
Sure.
better, there's definitely an excitement to be outside. That always
Yeah.
plays a part during the summer times, which I think every market sort of has to. It
Yep.
deals one way.
Right. You compete
Um,
with just nature at that point.
yeah, exactly, and people's desire to be outside. So, but no, there's really no other arena, thankfully, nearby here that puts some competition there. There is Seattle, and I'm sure there's competition from the Booker side, but I don't have to deal with that. Ultimately,
Exactly.
that's not my
Well,
job.
it seems like a nice link in the chain for, tours to route from California up to Seattle, up to Canada, and vice versa. So, I mean, it feels like it's got a nice place, sort of in the middle there between Seattle and California. It plays an important part. It's not too close to either one of those, and kind of in a good spot in the middle. I'm sure that's what your booker's telling everyone.
Yeah, well,
The perfect place.
also, we're located in the state. We're pretty much on the state line here of Washington, Oregon. So there's so many fans below us. There's so many larger markets, Salem and Eugene below us, Bend, that where we're located gives us there's just so many fans there that would maybe be too much of a trek to go up to Seattle, just
Sure. Yeah.
so yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So talk to us about your job. What do you do? Now we know about where you work, but tell us about what you do and kind of what your area of responsibility is.
Yeah, I've been here since 2016, director of arena marketing. So really the liaison, sort of, I guess you say, project manager for oversee all things marketing related for concerts and events and arena initiatives like hiring or food and beverage, along those lines, providing marketing help and assistance with those projects. And then liaison between the promoters in the market or promoters in the venue and our internal teams, So just managing the churn and burn of concerts and events that come.
Amen. Isn't that always it?
And do you have a team there you're working with?
Yeah, so team here we have Amanda. She's a marketing coordinator. She oversees email campaigns, group sales initiatives, and assists with media buys and such. Amelia Jude is our content manager. She manages our social media platforms and contents, and she's just great at that. And then we all sort of tag team on sort of fan activations, back of house activations, and juggling everything and anything concerts and event related.
I'm sure it's quite a lot going on. So do you just focus on the Moda Center, or do you do some of the other events at the other venue?
Oh yeah, it's everything Rose. You mean the VMC, the Veterans Memorial
Yeah.
Coliseum? Yeah, everything. So events that go there, events at the Moda Center, events on campus, anything that sort of has outside of the Blazers world, concert and event side. Yep.
And obviously it's quite a bit. So tell me about your relationship
Yeah.
with the teams. Are they kind of managed separately, and then you kind of work with them?
Yeah, so there's the Blazers and the Winterhawks have their own marketing departments, branding departments. We collaborate on things like cross promotion, stuff like this. So Blazers games, we have assets set aside for us to promote shows. Blazers have such programs like Kids Club that we allow us to help market our family shows in and work with them. Same with the Winterhawks, we'll do in-arena stuff, do reads, TV spots. So it's really just sharing of assets. And then cross promoting where there's makes sense. in terms of using mascots or trying to help elevate announcements and such.
Is it a challenge with the number of shows across the different venues at any point in time? You know, are you typically keying in kind of on the arena shows and then maybe any of the bigger names that hit the other venues you kind of focus on, or is it really like you're in the weeds on all the venue sizes?
We're just in it the whole thing, yeah. So,
Yeah,
and a lot of it's driven by, thankfully just being here since 2016, have really good relationships with our local promoter reps. And so I'm
sure.
constantly in contact with them, being like, hey, how's this show doing? Where can we pivot resources? Because that's ultimately what we're doing, is sort of like project managing the juggling all the shows. And you're having a half a dozen shows ending and then a half dozen starting. And then
Right.
you're sort of managing how we're pacing, how are we doing, what's the temperature on this show, like where do we pivot resources in. I'm always giving love across the board, but you need to sort of have that communication to know where to drive our PR team and our digital ad team and our content and all those things. Where should we be, sort of how are we pacing?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a lot of stuff to keep track of, and a lot of moving pieces and parts, I'm sure. Talk to me a little about Portland, because I think so many people that are listening obviously had the trip out to Seattle, and we kind of have that Pacific Northwest vibe. But how is Portland different? What's the vibe of Portland?
Portland marches to the beat of its own drum. I'll put that first. And it's the people of Portland is very, very proud, very community driven, very DIY driven. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of creatives in the city. From a marketing perspective, I think we are a city that will invest in you if you invest in us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
so sort of the arena initiatives we put in place need to be authentic, need
Yeah.
to need to be community focused in a lot of ways. Ways that we do that is, like, we have 18 local restaurants in the arena. Okay. We are LEED certified. We're platinum LEED certified at Moda Center and gold LEED at VMC, which is amazing because that's 1960 building. So
Yeah.
putting in green initiatives matters to the city. And by putting in those initiatives, they'll invest in us because we're investing in overall city itself. And so I guess that's, if that, does that make sense? Some of the,
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a blessing and a curse, but a good thing in that you've got these smart consumers that can kind of see through the bullshit. You know, like if you're just like, oh, here's this, come buy tickets, they're maybe not going to like buy in as much as when they see that you actually care about the community. And I think I like that. Given the option, I think the savvy consumer is the better one, because then when you do get that buy-in, you have these loyal fans that then like defend the brand, defend the team, defend the venue, and they feel that personal connection to it. So, I mean, I think that's great, though. I mean, that's a great thing about the city.
I think it's more like, listen, if Bruce Springsteen comes, he's going to sell out. It's not a problem. They're going to come. But
Right.
so the artists are going to always drive those people coming. Hey, this artist is stoked. But, we want fans to, when they have a Friday night available, let's see what's here, because
Yeah, sure.
I enjoy
Yeah, yeah.
going there. And so that's, you want to be the first search on those things happening. So that's, I think for us, it's about being authentic ultimately to Portland and the people that live here. I think too is, again, speaking marketing related, is, from a venue branding standpoint, I think it means, you got to toe the line between being too self-serving or not. So what I
Sure.
mean by that is, we're the most premier and we're the biggest is not going to resonate with everyone. It's about we need to brand the experience they're going to have coming here. I think branding we're the most premier venue or the biggest venue in this, whatever, how, you know what I mean? That type of branding works for B2B. And if you need partnerships or you need suite sales or something like that. But I
Right,
think
right, right.
for a B2C to fans, it's leaning into the experience they'll have here is hey, you're going to get local restaurants here. You're going to get local craft brew here. You're going to have a great time. And it's ultimately the experience that you brand. That's how I view it.
Does that provide interesting opportunities when you are thinking of some of these like outside the box marketing strategies on shows where you are able to reach out into the community and work with these little local mom and pop shops, or a local designer or something that some markets might not have because they aren't quite as creative, they aren't quite as unique, they aren't embracing the weird maybe as much as Portland is.
Oh yeah, I always am very mindful that when we reach out to get ultimately their assistance to help with an announcement or like push a show, is that there's something for them too. Like,
Sure.
hey, if you promote this, like we can repost it to our followers and tag you, or we can get you and your team tickets maybe, or just I try to be very mindful of like we're not just like, hey, help us, like we're not just taking, that we're also like there's a synergy between, hey, scratch my back, I scratch yours, we help each other, and then hopefully that comes out of it. When we do like back of house stuff, like there's been I can say maybe 2 or 3 times that I haven't used an artist in Oregon, but all the artist gifts are here, based out of here. Like I always be mindful of like that that we're not just going to Amazon.com to buy something or do that.
Right.
It's actually something here. So
Well, let me take you back a little bit, turn of the century. Uh, you're going to you're starting college in Chicago. At the time when you enrolled in Columbia College there that you were going to go into marketing communications? Was that from the beginning?
it was, well, that was the plan. There was a detour, but I went to school for marketing. I knew I was sort of playing, I was hedging my bets a little bit. Like I went to school for marketing, but every intern I did was in the music related field. So like I interned at Sony BMG when it was a record label. I interned at Aware Records, where their new hit artist was John Mayer. Interned at
You
uh,
broke John Mayer? Oh my
no,
gosh,
I
amazing.
didn't.
That's
He
what
was
I
already
heard.
broken by the time I got there, but he was like the new, like, wow, this artist is really
That's
growing.
cool. Yeah.
Uh, at Ware Records, and then I was at House of Blues Chicago, working the marketing there. And so I just made sure everything I did, I worked at a record store part time. So everything I did was music focused with a marketing degree. So it's like, okay, I got this degree, but I want to make sure I get my experience here on the music side of everything. So
Where did that love of music come from?
I really don't know where it's come from. I just have always, I played drums. I was in bands growing up, so I just have always been gravitated towards music, and you know, and I would say my parents, but they played a fair amount, but it wasn't really pushed on me. It was just sort of on the background. So, I was in church choir growing up, things like that. But I don't know where it ultimately like stemmed from. I really can't say.
So, a lot of internships and a lot of times in the venues, did that lead you to your gig there with Sony Pictures, where for a number of years you were doing licensing and clearance?
A little bit, but not much. So when I was in college, a lot of my friends were film majors. And because I knew a lot of Chicago bands and I knew a lot of music, that they were like, Kevin, do you want to pick the music for our films or like film this day? So like I was like, yeah. So I started to dabble in that. And at the time it was sort of like it sort of was talked about as a career path, music supervision and music licensing. And so
Yeah.
when I graduated, there wasn't many opportunities in Chicago, and I moved to LA and just applied for anything I could. And I ended up getting a sort of a legal temp job at Sony Pictures TV, and then that led me to the music department where I worked on clearing and licensing music for like 7 years, like Justified, Breaking Bad, The Sing Off. It's a
What's
lot
that
of
process like?
it's a lot like what we do, honestly. It's a very similar. The workflow is very similar. So you work
Interesting.
at any moment, you're juggling 4 or 5 TV shows. Okay. And those 4 or 5 TV shows have multiple episodes, and those multiple episodes have multiple songs. And those multiple songs have multiple rights holders. So when you're going through the clearance, when you're juggling, multitasking, all this stuff, you get a list of songs that they need or cleared, and then you're reaching out to the rights holders and turn around. A lot of times it's very quick, but then you have last minute requests. They'll be in an editing bay, and the producer says, we want to change out this song for this one. We need it by tomorrow, which is
Yep.
very eerily similar to, hey, we got this show announcing tomorrow. We need all this. Oh, man.
We don't have an ad, Matt.
And so it's really fast paced. It's a lot of managing multiple projects and multiple things at once. And sometimes high stressed in terms of turning around. You're dealing with some pretty big projects. So maybe high, maybe various egos, but so you get it done, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's very exciting.
Is there a favorite show or project you worked on when you look back that you were like, man, I really like that was really cool to be a part of that? Or
For me, it was, I don't know if there's anything specific. Worked on Sing Off. That was really cool. It was a competition show. I was a few degrees away from Breaking Bad. I was involved, but it was ran by another team essentially. So, but I helped with that occasionally, which was cool to look back on. Um,
Are you ever like watching a show and you hear a music cue and you're like, that was me. I get that cleared.
no, no. I really never did.
probably you're more likely watching a show and you're like, oh man, I bet that song was impossible to get.
Oh, all the time,
Yeah, yeah,
all the time. And I also think about like songs that don't fit. I'm like, oh, that you didn't
yeah.
have to
Who made
spend
this
that.
decision? Exactly.
But I also I see that a lot of times from like I'll watch something like, oh wow, how'd they get that clear? Or like that wait, watching indie film and you're like, wow, there's so yeah, I run into that a lot where I get removed from the film when I watch it.
And then from Sony, you went to ASG. That's a little switch there. Talked about that role.
That was just an independent publishing company. So it was a film for TV publishing company that worked with singer-songwriters. I wanted after leaving Sony to test out getting into like a smaller company, maybe an up and coming company. And they had a partnership with Alcon, which is a production company that does films. And that was really rad. I worked out of a place called The Village, which is a recording studio in near Santa Monica. And the owner of that company is Ken Calais. He did Fleetwood Mac, Rumors, and Tusk. His daughter's Kobe Calais, and it was his company. Well, he was one of the owners, and I got to go to an amazing studio where all these bands would be at every day. So you could hear Elton John recording downstairs. You heard
That's
Coldplay would be
crazy.
walking by. John Mayer's personal studio was next door. Like it was wild. It was really, really, really cool. But ultimately, I was just like LA just was running its toll on me and needed to get out.
But you at least have the story. You can say you lived in the villages with, or the village with, with Elton John and John Mayer. There you go, John Mayer again. You following John Mayer's career.
Yeah, it was, yeah, that's very, very strange. But yeah, so that was a really just cool experience. Actually, really funny story related to that. This is not marketing related at all, by the way. Is we had an artist email us that wanted to work together, and he came in, played us some songs, and we loved it, and I loved it. I was like, man, you're so good. And I was It's so funny. I had to like help pick him up on the corner because his cousin was dropping him off or something. And he was so talented. And we emailed back and forth for a while. Nothing came of that because it didn't work at the time. But I was like, man, you are so talented. And then he moved back down to Texas. I was like, okay. And it ended up being Eric Burton, who's the lead singer of Black Pumas.
Oh, wow. That's
And
awesome.
I heard Colors on a commercial like 2 years ago. And I was like, wait, that's Colors from Eric Burton. Like what is that? And then I Google him. I'm like, he's been in Black Pumas now. And like, oh my God, now I'm He's like, I heard that song. He performed that to us when we were at the studio. And he's the nicest guy. Like I'm so happy for him. And I just was like, that's amazing. So
True story. I was at the gas station this weekend pumping gas, and that song was on playing at the gas station. I was like, oh, I forgot how much I love this song.
They're excellent. I've seen them at a festival and they're incredible. Hopefully you'll have them at the arena sometime and
I really
you can
want him
remind
here.
him of that story. That would be great.
But I don't know if he'd remember me, but I was helping him out for a while, be like, hey, I think you should send this song like this. But I would love that if he played here because I'd just love to congratulate him because I'm so happy.
So you're spending your time in LA, hobnobbing with the stars, and at some point things change, and life takes you to Portland, Oregon, where you start, as a kind of a media buyer doing marketing with the Trailblazers. Big transition. How does that happen?
I moved here with my wife, and I actually was just working with a staffing agency, and they said, hey, the Blazers are hiring somebody that has a music background to work on concert marketing. And I was like, well, that's perfect. And I ended up applying and getting the job. And that's sort of that story. It's just worked with a staffing agency. They were Blazers. The Blazers slash the arena was ultimately hiring somebody to do concerts or work with the promoters to do media buying and marketing. And that's how I landed here and been here ever since.
What was that transition like, into this job? I mean, you said there's certain similarities, but obviously from having not worked on the venue side to then all of a sudden being on the venue side, were there any hiccups along the way, or was it kind of an easy thing for you to jump in and get in the middle of it?
Um, from a workflow standpoint, it was fairly easy. Like I said before, like, working at Sony, there's just a lot of projects you're juggling. So I felt comfortable juggling multiple shows and working with multiple departments. That was okay. The biggest thing is just the market, because you have to like to market shows in Portland, you got to understand Portland, you got to understand the people, you got to understand, you got to have relationships with local businesses or local, obviously media. The media less so, because listen, if you're gonna spend with them, they'll take your money. So you can reach out for rate and do it, but it's really just like the relationships with like local organizations or local businesses, and like understanding purchasing sort of like habits of the market,
Sure.
competition in the market, and all that stuff. And that's something that, we moved here 2015 and I'm brought on 2016. 1 year doesn't really give you that. You don't really have that footing yet. So that was sort of the biggest take was figuring out, like, learning about the city more and learning about, how to, building the connections around the city to promote shows.
You mentioned the wife. How long you been married? Tell us how you guys met.
We've been married since 2015. Met on a OK Cupid.
Hey, there you
Platform.
go.
That's a throwback. That's a throwback app. If it, I don't know.
Yeah.
I met there and met in LA. She lived up here for a bit, so we'd come often and visit her friends and come up here. And I was just like, I'm from Wisconsin originally, so it felt very similar. It was very nice. It's beautiful, or this is a beautiful state. And so it just felt very comfortable here. So once LA, we were sort of like, I think where this is running its course. Let's move up here, and left everything and came up here and figured it out. So
Yeah, what are some of your favorite, on a personal side, favorite parts about Oregon and Portland? Like you said, you grew up in Wisconsin, you went to school in Chicago, you were in LA, you kind of bounced around, been in different markets. What makes Portland unique? What makes Oregon unique? What do you love to do, and what has made it home for you?
I mean, one is the beauty. If you've ever been here, it's the beach isn't too far, the mountains aren't too far. There's just like, it's green, it's lush. Yes, it rains, but you don't have the lush without the rain. So it's a give and take. And
Sure.
it's just the beauty is really the main thing that drew me to it initially. And then the people and the friends that we have here are just very like I said, they're creative, they're artists, they are embracing of all things weird and different. And that's ultimately what drew me to it, is just like wow, you can really be yourself here, you can really be comfortable here, and there's something for everyone in terms of just the funkiness and the DIY and sort of that's sort of like against the grain attitude, which I actually like, is like, well, let's try something
Yeah.
different. I love this idea, but let's do it different. Like, you know what, let's ride bikes, but let's do it naked. You're like, okay, what? you know, like,
Exactly.
like, all right, you do you. But yeah, like I can appreciate that. There's so many times in this role now that I come across that in marketing that I go, okay, like I get respect, like, so we talk, we often, when we're talking shop, we talk a lot about like back of house activations or artist gifts and things like that. I can't tell you how many times like I've contacted a local company and been like, hey, so and so's coming here and they love, this one example was juice. Like they love like organic juice. Like, could we do a custom flavor? Yeah, we don't do that. Okay. How about this? Like, can we just do like a custom label? You don't have to change anything. They're like, no, we don't do custom labels. And you're like, this is for a big artist backstage. And you're like, and so like part of me is like, oh, are you kidding me? But the other part of me respects it, because I'm like, you know what? Like, stick to your guns.
You do you,
Right,
right?
exactly.
So in Portland, I run across that, I see what other arenas do, and I'm just like, let me try that. And then the business will be like, yeah, we don't do
They're
that.
like, we're not going to sell out to corporate like that. Yeah, I
They're
don't
like,
care
okay. And that goes back a little bit, circling back on what we were talking about before, as far as like branding and being authentic to Portland, is just, they'll invest in you, invest in them in that way. And like, I think like if you, they don't want to feel like they're just feeding the machine. You have to give back as well, and you need to do that. So I think the best way we can do that is support that as a venue. Like, yeah, okay, understand that. Like, I'm not coming in being like, well, we're Moda Center. This is amazing opportunity for you. Like, I'm not coming in like that. I'm
Right.
coming in very much like, let me know what you're capable of. Are you comfortable with this? Are you not? What's possible? And then being respectful to whether or not they even want to do anything or collaborate in any way. So, yeah.
Authenticity seems to be the big word that I've heard from you a lot. And is that something, as you kind of built your career, that you would, when you're talking to somebody who's maybe thinking about getting into this industry, that's something that's important?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You mean as individual, or do you mean as like
Yes.
just said? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think authenticity drives unique and creative ideas. And it's like, if you're putting different ingredients into a pot, like everyone's own ingredients, bringing in their own history or their own story is going to bring unique ideas to the table. So I think it's important to just be your authentic self, because you're probably going to come up with something that we can't provide. If you're trying to do what everyone else is doing, then what's unique that you're bringing to the table. So I think authenticity ultimately brings forward unique ideas.
Well, and I love how you mentioned how in Portland, because it's so, unique and weird and fun like that, it isn't forcing people to conform. And if anything, it's suggesting the opposite. It's like it's challenging people to think outside the box, to be themselves, and also just really be creative and not be kind of tied down to, oh, I have to do this because this is the way everyone else in the city is doing it, which I think sometimes happens in markets. So I love that it provides that platform for creativity, and what a great opportunity to be a venue in that market that can kind of relate to those different people as they explore that.
Yeah, I think I feel very fortunate. We are very fortunate to work in a city that has an identity outside of itself. Like
Yeah.
we have tours that come here and they already know what they want in the city. They know what like they want to try or where they want to visit. Like there's been so many times I've been on a call with like promoters or other counterparts in other arenas, and they're like, we're on a bucket. Oh, yeah, I want to visit Portland. I want to go up there. So I feel very fortunate that like, and this goes, going back to the backstage experience and some of that stuff, unless there's like an aha moment, like, oh, we got to do this for the artist that makes sense, we always often lean into Portland backstage and bringing Portland to the backstage experience, and bringing us, because, when it comes to tours, if there's like a 30-day tour and we're the 20th, we're all reading the same things about an artist. So
Right.
we're all,
Right.
so I'm like, well,
Yeah.
if let's say
Everyone
Bad
knows they like dogs, they like this brand of
Yeah.
beer, they like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Oh, this
Exactly.
artist loves their dog. Well, if we're 20th, there's probably seven other dogs things that have been done before that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
What I know is no one else can do Portland. So
Amen.
we ultimately lean into that. Like, we're gonna bring a voodoo food truck backstage. We're going to bring a coffee motorcycle. We're gonna bring like try to like let's just lean into us and not try to lean into the artist, because there's a high likely probability that the things that we're reading, other arenas have read and already have tried to do that. Plus, I said, like we have some unique things that we can bring to the table, just being us. So.
Again, authentic, man. I love it. Hey, we're about ready to wrap things up here. Before I do, I want to hit you with our fast five. Five quick questions. Just looking for your short, instant response. First up, what was your very first concert?
My very first concert, does the Ninja Turtles show
Ah,
count? That rock tour?
absolutely.
That technically was my first.
That's
How
incredible.
about your favorite concert?
My favorite concert, I saw Paul McCartney at the Hollywood Bowl. That comes to
Ah,
mind.
Oh yeah, that's good.
you're from Wisconsin, obligated to ask you, what's your favorite kind of cheese?
Probably Sharp Cheddar.
Ooh. What was the last great album you listened to?
The White Reaper album that came out last year.
Last question for you. You're a music clearance guy, so you should have a solid answer here. What's your theme song? Cameras follow you all around, film your life. what is the song that plays over the opening credits of your very own TV show?
Oh my goodness. That's so hard. Have you asked other people
We
this?
ask everyone this one, and it's almost always the one that hangs people up because they're like, shit.
Everybody takes it so personally, right? You want to get the right
Yeah,
song.
yeah. Plus, we all work in an industry of music, so there's we're like endless category that we're thumbing through in our brains that are like, tick, 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 tick.
Well, there's also like a level of like a theme song versus like a song you like is two different things. Like,
Right. Yeah.
like,
Right.
oh, this song I great, but that's depressing if that's my theme song. That
Right.
can't be my theme
My
song.
theme song can't be gin and juice. I just
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess it could, but
He's probably more cursed by the fact that he has history in music licensing. Because
yeah,
now
like,
he's
oh, what's my budget?
Yes. Which label do I have to call?
I think one, because I think it just fits from a music clearance. If I was like, oh, that fits the opening of a theme song, I'd probably pick like Big Me by the Foo Fighters.
Oh, very
Oh.
nice.
Yeah, I like it.
Very nice. Kevin, before we wrap it up, give us some plugs if people want to follow along with what you're doing out there in the Rose Quarter, or find you out there. Give us the plugs.
Yeah, our website's rosequarter.com. My Instagram is Kevin Merlet. That's my name without any vowels.
Just
There
that
you go.
easy. Hey, I know you got a lot going on out there. Really loved hearing about everything you guys are doing, and appreciate your time today.
No, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
And a big thanks to everybody for listening to this episode of Adventures in Venueland. Remember, you can subscribe and find more episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We do love your 5-star reviews so you can help others find us. Until the next adventure, I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep Portland weird. Adventures in Venueland is a side project of the Event and Venue Marketing Conference, a marketing conference that brings together diversified event and venue professionals to cultivate education, collaboration, and innovation for the growing sports and live entertainment industry. Find out more at eventvenuemarketing.com.
Audio editing and mixing by Camille Faulkner.
Design and digital advertising by Megan Ebeck.
Copywriting and publicity by Samantha Marker.
Guest booking and brand strategies by Paul Hooper.
Guest research by Dave Rettelberger.
Marketing strategies by Paul Hooper, Megan Ebeck, and Samantha Marker. Thanks for joining us. Until the next adventure.